yeah, it's oddly enough not a region that fantasy kind of travels to that often. Fantasy, I guess, coming out of Tolkien is more often a Northern European concern. So, you know, I wanted to do something that was Mediterranean in feel, and Akelos grew out of a kind of an ancient Greek flavoured civilization. I feel like because there were themes of slavery, I couldn't go to Italy. I think that that has been kind of done in a... We've had so many years of kind of kitsch slave tradition coming out of that, all of that, like Spartacus, Antoninus, spill me a grape stuff. And I also really liked the fact that, you know, when we think about ancient Greece, we instinctively understand this is a culture that constructs sexual identity really differently than the way that we construct it here in our own time. You know, I mean, there's heaps of stuff I love about that culture. I love the epic tales, and I love the way that they mythologize their own heroes, but when we think about ancient Greece, we understand, like, while sexual attraction is innate, the way that cultures construct sexual identity has changed dramatically, culture to culture, time period to time period. Like those concepts are not transhistoric. And I think with a pseudo-classical Greece setting, I can kind of, it can kind of act as a touchstone for the reader. Like we're entering a space that might have different, might be a bit more homonormative, might have different sexual kind of norms. I wanted the reader to feel like that this could be a very kind of sexually different, free, comfortable space.
You were saying before that you wrote this book because it was something that you wanted to read, but there were authors that sort of would have led you, or at least sort of inspired you maybe a little bit?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I do have authors of like books that have inspired me or like influenced me as a writer. I would say probably one of my biggest influences is a historical writer called Dorothy Dunnett, who wrote a series called, she wrote two series actually, the Lyman Chronicles and the Niccolo series. There's a lot of influence on Captive Prince probably from both of those series. I like writers who, I like writing that's very controlled and restrained. I like it when there's and I like writers who are in control of what I think of as like their unwritten text, so that when you look at the actual text, there might not be that much going on, but it seems like there's things going on between the lines. I feel like I learned quite late in my writing journey that what you don't write can work and be harnessed just as powerfully as what you do write. So, you know, in sculpting there's that idea of negative space, so there's a sculpture and then there's the spaces that the sculpture creates. And I feel like writing, there is also that unwritten text, and it can have a power in the text, and she's so good. She's the master of that. You just feel this invisibly expressed emotions. You'll feel rising tension. You'll feel passion or anger or control. When you look at the actual words, the actual writing, you just think like, where is this coming from? I can't see it in the writing. So her, and she's also an amazing plotter. I feel like I learned a lot about the kind of techniques and mechanics of writing from her. I really love Iris Murdoch. She's written like 60 novels. I probably only love about 20 of them. So it can be hit and miss if you... but she's really good at biased viewpoint and perspective. She wrote a novel called The Bell that really influenced me a lot, where you follow the book through a series of different viewpoints, and each one kind of backlights what has come before, so that each time you think you have the full picture, but you don't really. The way that she deals with character and perspective has been a really big influence on me. But as well as all of that, you know, I feel influenced by, you know, by the world of online fiction, by web serials, by fan fiction. I feel like that space has influenced me in terms of like giving me a freedom to be creative. There was a writer called Anna S., whose work that I read when I was like, I I don't know, 16, and she was writing fan fiction of the X-Files, and she used the word Malthusian in a sentence effortlessly, and that was probably when I thought, oh wow, I really love what she's doing with words, like in sentences. I want to be able to write like that, I want to write like that, and I started writing because of her. I also feel like I'm probably influenced by a lot of Japanese media that I've read. Japan's really good at epic fantasy that also like comes like from the loins, you know. I like the epic storytelling and the high archetypes that come out of Japanese manga. So those are probably my influence points, yeah. So I wasn't like a Joss Whedon where someone would comment something and then I'd instantly do the opposite or anything like that. So the story was planned from beginning to end. So if someone guessed something that was coming up, I just had to live with it. But I think that the ways that people commenting on the story influenced my actual writing was probably in two ways. The first of which was, I feel like as an artist, sometimes when you're writing, you have to make yourself very vulnerable. And what I mean by that is, sometimes you have to write things that you feel personally embarrassed by, or that might be a little bit past your own comfort zone. And that's usually when they're coming from like the deep id, you know. It can feel very scary to put those things on the page, and there's a huge temptation just to back off from that kind of material. When often that material is like the most powerful material that you're actually writing. So having a live interaction with the readership allowed me to see, oh, when I push into those spaces, that's the stuff that people really, really respond to. So what it allowed me to see was like, not only is it okay to be artistically vulnerable in front of an audience, but that's when you're doing your best work actually, you know, that you don't have to be afraid of that. I feel like I had sort of the opposite experience at, you know, like I did the whole university writing workshop thing where you do a creative writing course and then you all sit. I don't know if any of you have ever had this experience, but you sit around and you critique each other's work, and having your work audienced by readers, which I experienced online, and having them critiqued in a workshop by writers is completely different. Like readers are much more, you know, readers read because they want to fall in love with a book, and so they read kind of with an open heart. Writers, they're just, if those moments where you write something embarrassing or out there or whatever, maybe writers will also feel like, oh, maybe you shouldn't do that, that's a little bit too much, you know. So I was lucky enough to be like completely supported by that online readership. And I think maybe like the second way that they influenced me was sometimes people would develop passionate caring for a character that I hadn't realized was important at all. And so, like, you know, like Guardsman B or whatever would develop like quite a cult following. And so I would have to go away and think like, oh, you know, just do a little bit of extra work, like really think about their character and their role in the book in a way that I might not have. I might have been a little bit more dismissive, or, you know, frankly, I might have been a bit lazier about that stuff if I'd been writing without such a like meticulously caring reader base. So that was how that influence and interaction happened. Yeah.
I was going to ask, did you find that your actual writing process changed when you moved from a serial format to delivering a full standalone novel? Were you still writing things in order? You've said that things have been planned out. Were you writing in order like when you were writing your serial, or were you jumping around to different parts in book 3?
Yeah, I think, it radically changed. So book 3 I had much more of so when I was writing books 1 and 2, because it was written in serial format, you know, if I wrote myself into a corner or something in my planning fell through, then I just had to think of a way out of it. I was just stuck with what I had. But with book 3, I got to write in a much more traditional manner. So I wrote the entire draft, and then I went back and kind of looked at it and thought, what's not working here, what can be improved, that process allowed me technically to do a lot more than I could have if I'd been writing in a row. And I think that in that sense, that book really benefited probably from the new process. I learned that book 3s are much, much more difficult to write than books at 1 or 2. Like, the level of difficulty is like staggeringly higher. I really understood why like a lot of series choke at their last book. It's just because it's just very difficult to do. I think a book has its own arc, and then a series has an arc, and I can only express this with like crude hand gestures, but often the way that those arcs will interact in your structure, you know, there's just a lot of structural planning that you need to do in order that things are climaxing in the right place and that everything is kind of like working towards a powerful conclusion. If I hadn't, like, I can say with frank honesty that if I hadn't had the opportunity to write the manuscript all in one go, I don't know if I could have written book 3, or if I know. I honestly can't imagine. Like, it's weird. I feel like this has just like turned out for the best for the series itself. So I know like where the choke point would have been. It would have been around chapters 3 or 4. I don't. There's yeah. But yeah, that process did really change things. I missed everyone when I was writing. I found book 3 actually a very lonely writing experience because I was used to a reader base. Yeah, it was lonelier for me, but better for the book, I think. Now that I've written book 3 alone, I can honestly say that the experience of writing books 1 and 2 were just the most like privileged, amazing experiences of my life. Like being able to interact with readers like that and just having a community around me. I feel like if I never experienced that again, like I may never experience that again, and it was so incredible and so important for me as a person. On the other hand, I've seen what writing a full draft allows you to do as a writer, like what kind of work it allows you to produce and how much more sophisticated that work can be as a result. So that has its own temptations for me. It's something that I'd really love to do again. It would have to be when I was in a position to be able to do that, I guess, like financially, and then also the right project where I felt like this is going to be the best book it can be written in serial form. And if those two things are in place, then I'll just run back to that space like just so fast because it was much more just a really precious experience for me.
How many stories or ideas would you say you've got running around in your head right now?
In my head right now, I have 2 major ideas for series, and one of them is like the big idea that I've had for probably about 10 years that I'm just dying to write, and the other one is just like ridiculously cool, so it's quite tempting in its own way. The other thing is, although I cannot reveal many details about this, there will be a mini project that is Captive Prince adjacent that will be kind of, I guess, some more information about that will be revealed kind of, I guess, in the next couple of months. I don't know if I could keep that a secret.